Продолжаем наш эфир, переходим к следующей теме.
We are continuing, going to the next topic. Unfortunately, climate change is not the only human-made problem. UN estimates that around 1 million species of plants and animals are now threatened, out of 8 million of them. AI can help to save that, and AI is now actively used to support the population of rare species. And our guests are going to expand on that. Oleg Artyugin, the Executive Director of the section AI for the Society of Sber, Maria Solovyeva, and Severtsov Institute of Ecology and Evolution of the Russian Academy of Sciences, and Alexander Galanov, the first category engineer of the Federal State Budgetary Institution, All-Russian Research Institute of Forestry and Forestry Mechanization from Siberia. Hi everyone. Hello. First question for you, Oleg.
Шокирующую, на самом деле, цифру прочитала, что
shocking stats in the last 50 years. The number of wild animals globally decreased by 69%. That's absolutely shocking. What are the most relevant topics for saving biodiversity? As far as I understand, we have to face the biodiversity challenge right now as we speak, and what are the ML and AI solutions that help to save biodiversity? Actually, the decrease in population of wild animals is on top of the agenda, and we as ML engineers, we have been working in that field for quite a while. There is data scientists have been working there for quite a while. There's a low base effect because many ML technologies that are used in many other areas can give you some great effect here. Can add a lot of value for the researchers that work with that. For example, there's a lot of rare species, threatened species like Amur tigers. It's less than 1,000 of them anyway, and the grey whales and leopards and Black Sea dolphins and others. I think every continent has some species that are endangered, and at least they have to be protected, or I mean, at least they have to be monitored. And computer vision technologies can be used to calculate the number. The sound analysis technologies can be used, like the forest sound analysis, to understand what is the health status of every ecosystem. We're also talking about identification and detection of the animals to make the routine research work easier. We are now using detection and identification to work with the photo traps, and the photos that are being done by the researchers in Black Sea are used. Yes, obviously you can take a picture of everyone, of every species, of every animal, and calculate that, but that will require a tremendous amount of work. But the photo identification is the best way to go, and now the researchers, they try to find the photos with the animal, and they do it manually, and they try to like recognize the specific animal. Like how can you distinguish one tiger from another, like by their face? The experts can do that, but the photo should be like really, so like there should be like a mugshot of a tiger. Yeah, well, then there are many nocturnal shots because well, tigers are active during the night, and this is how the researchers look like on the slide. They're very sad, obviously, and tired to find the photos that they need. We use the same photos to identify people, and we can make the same pictures so that the researchers can recognize animals. and actually not only recognize the tigers, but actually add their value, add their scientific value. So it is recognized, it should be recognized by the AI, and then it should be put in the interface that it will be user-friendly and the researchers will do their research work. So and you can actually count all the tigers like that. Well, it will help to automate what actually people do. So right now, basically, to put it in a nutshell, basically there's a PhD researcher in animal sciences, and he just sits there and just manually counts the number of stripes on the tiger. Well, yeah, it actually happens like that. Yeah, and we decided that this is the area that, although it's not our area, but of expertise, we think that it's a great that's a great thing to do, actually, to optimize the work of the scientists like that. And the data sets, the marked data for the training data set, that's the major goal, to make sure it's good. Yeah, I think I'll pop in with some questions here, sure. So when you calculate the animals, these are like tigers or leopards, these are like large animals. But what about small animals? Can AI recognize smaller animals and count them? Yeah, it's not the size that matters here. The machine can work with the spectra that people actually cannot see, cannot recognize. And we can talk about the cameras that work in the range that is wider than the human eye. And the size does not matter really here. The question is, how can we train the algorithm to recognize these animals? And then the question is to deliver the data regularly and process them properly. Yeah, but actually we have used a very simple, very specific example that yes, the animal population goes down, there's some migration. What are the other cases, like the cases that you can actually see and touch, that you can talk about? For example, the forest sound recording and analysis. There are 360 degrees mics in the forest, and you can actually, the machine can actually understand whether the forest is healthy or not. Or you can control the animals going to the approaching the people. For example, if a bear, for example, goes near the village, and actually that's a big problem with white polar bears. Currently, the white bears were just terrorizing some local populations. They were trying to hunt children, and for several years, this has been happening for several years right now, that these hungry bears are terrorizing the local population. Yeah, because the climate is changing, the length of the summer, the length of the winter is changing, and they need more ice. The time when the ice is not melting, they do not have enough time to feed on the fish. Yeah, understood. Now, data collection, obviously we need that. What are the other ways that we can affect positively the biodiversity? Well, you can talk about the forecasting models. Now, collecting data is something that you need to train the NN. When I talk about the forecasting model, we can use some up-to-date approaches to make the algorithms more complicated, more complex, to build ecosystem models. And obviously here we need the partnership between the experts and the ML experts and data scientists, and that will give the best result, really, because these are the competencies and skills that should be synergized together. Maybe we can do that right now, like your fantastic skill sets. Can we combine them? Let's say there's some species that we want to save a lot. Do you want a furry one or not? Let's take Far Eastern leopards. Right. Far Eastern leopards. Can you help to calculate them? Yeah, we can do that. And not just saying like it's like we have this number of leopards, but you can say it's a male or female, how old it is. Yeah, that's the question of the training set. We can take the parameters. I would guesstimate that actually the age can be correlated with how it looks. But I mean, obviously there will be some difficulties for the machine to understand the exact age. Like we have some problems with identifying the age, sometimes. But if you can actually track the family and the relation. Maria, do you need this information? Oh, yeah, of course. We get that information from the photo traps if we make a monitoring story, Not just put in a photo trap for several years, but then you see some cubs that are being born, you know the age, you then monitor them until they become mature, you see what their age, you see when this leopards started to actually make babies as well. We have been using these photo traps for many years, and now we have the information about 4 generations of leopards. But then there's a PhD scientist who actually looks at that and counts. What is another approach like that? When can AI be used? And Alexander, as an expert on nature, as an expert in AI, how can AI be used there?
Well, that's obviously primary in any food chain. Without the plants, without the trees, without plankton, talking about the sea, you can't do without that. That's the basis. Again, if you go back to the leopards, the vegetation defines how the hooved animals, how well they feel, and how well these feel will define how well the leopards feel. And at the end of the day, it's all about, okay, we have a huge pool of information, we know the main migration routes, and then we need to use AI to understand what the zones are more important for these animals, or those animals. We can't just close all Far Eastern Federal District and say you can't do any industrial activity here. We need to understand the hotspots, the most problematic areas, the most important areas for these animals. And here perhaps we need to add anthropogenic man-made activities. And we need to, zone, make better zones for the leopards, make better zones for the humans. Yes, and you can add the data from these space monitoring, aerial, and we're getting a huge map with multiple layers of information. Here we can do, we need to do this, there we need to do that. Fewer insects might actually cause a depletion in the population of leopards, but with a huge time lag. If you know the biological patterns, right now on Earth, there's pretty much every animal that is affected, unless humans set up certain conditions for that animal. And if we know the behaviors of animals, we can do all kinds of things. One animal, one bear wants to stake out his territory, scratching the bark on a certain tree, and another one will want to do less than that. You can run mathematical models on that. You can run all kinds of analysis on molecular genetics. Genetics is no longer about morphological idiosyncrasies. You can project DNA just to understand what's going to happen going further. And why geographic barriers are brought down, why environmental niches are changing. All of these things are important, and the human factor is pretty difficult to describe. You know, the four of us don't know what we're going to be doing in 10 minutes. Well, hopefully in 10 minutes we're going to keep at it with the podcast, but you know, Marina, we have been drawing a hypothetical case, but what about successful examples that have been implemented? Well, look, when I came here, I actually wrote up a huge list of the things that have been accomplished, more or less, or things where specific concrete work has been in progress, and there's a wish list, and it's just a huge list. Actually, it is about 4 pages in, 5 minutes or 15 minutes of thinking. So I chose perhaps, a few very graphic stories. They're a bit more slanted towards marine mammals, just because I like those. Just we as scientists, without inviting AI experts, we have tinkered with some success in tracking. Walruses use floating ice to proliferate, etc. We spot them with planes, but they are noisy, and it's about flying pretty low so you can spot the animals before they disappear. Most of that is done still by humans. Humans are trying to count the individual walruses, seals, from the height of 200 meters. Yes, pretty difficult. Hard on the eyes. We've got the cameras, we've got infrared. And we have been training neural networks to spot the walruses on the floating ice. And then there are, bigger walruses, smaller seals, and you need to spot them on snow. We are actually using infrared imaging just as a backup, because we can't because we can't trust a neural network. Hopefully we can, because that will make it much cheaper and much simpler. Are you actually testing the neural network, or are you testing the human and the neural network? So you actually train the model, and now you're using it. Now you're testing it. Yeah, some of those pictures have the walruses, and then you get the confirming pictures that the neural network, saying that the neural network spotted the walruses, right? What is the accuracy? Just a percent or two. How erroneous are humans? Well, humans are erroneous, and we are okay with that. What about the neural networks? Well, we don't know that. We don't know that. Well, why don't you use the old records? Yes, please come in and do that. There we go. There's one project that has just popped up. We've got photo imaging. That's for a tiger. Neural network can identify a tiger based on the image, still image. Yandex have this, Irbises. Yandex did a project in one nature preserve. The neural network was able to do spotting. Actually, they've got a Telegram bot where you can upload a picture, and you're going to get the answer what animal that is. The neural network can determine about 10 species. And the imaging that we use looks about this way. The neural network must understand where is the seal and how it is different from a stone, a boulder. a still camera does about a picture an hour. And then it's about the spotting. Our whales have scars, they've got spots, they've got stripes. This is a Greenland whale in the Sea of Okhotsk. These are different animals. They've got different spots on their tails. And we've got experts that know every individual whale out of a series of 100. You're talking bigger animals. What about the smaller species, microscopic? I am prepared, all right. We've got this project, pretty serious project. We've got various microorganisms. This is diatomic algae. That's a phytoplankton. That's a two-door house of sorts where this algae lives. And this is pretty unique on the right-hand side, on the grey background. They're all very different, and if you look at them through the microscope, you get a picture just as on the left. These are actually microscope-derived pictures. So you've got experts perusing the pictures, trying to classify these. I think this is a job very similar for the neuron, very much up to scratch for the neural network. Well, that's pretty similar for a capture. So this is not an issue at all. But right now, people sometimes are worse at capture than algorithms. The classical capture is done quicker by an algorithm than by a human. So it takes... Why don't we do a capture with the diatomic algae? Do you have to become an expert in AI if you are a specialist in zoology? Well, dear AI experts, if you're listening to this podcast, please come. We've got reams of data, we've got reams of jobs, and I think we've got enough data that is required to train the neural networks. Well, here's another question that I think is very important for you. Poachers. Do you think AI is going to be able to help against the poachers? I think algorithms can fight poachers if a still camera captures. It's no longer a problem given the fact that biometric face identification is used on the underground. Some skins that are sold on Avito or on some markets, you can use our databases to spot the individual skins that are being sold by poachers. So in practice, artificial intelligence can help to fight poaching. Well, there is a law that is not in the domain of artificial intelligence, but in terms of AI, that looks solvable. Well, perhaps enough on the fauna. Why don't we talk about flora? Forests, the lungs of the planet. What are the cutting-edge solutions in forestry and managing forests? And what information is being collected about the forests? And how are you helped here by artificial intelligence? Primarily in systematizing the data, because even if it's an XLSX table, millions of lines take time and skill and engineering solutions to process all of this information. It needs to be processed systematically. Information used to be collected traditionally. Some photo traps that were placed on trees, all kinds of sensors, all kinds of gauges. All these tools were designed, tens of years ago, decades ago. And you can still use them, but you need to adapt them to AI processing, because faults are pretty pretty high. You know, how high is a tree? You know, it takes standing 20 yards out, and if it's 19 or 25, data is imprecise. So it's no longer about the digital technology, it's about the adaptation of the data collection instruments. And second, we're actually developing the neural network technology that is getting better in processing the data. Remote probing of the Earth, replenishing the data that AI can already read. It's about structuring, it's about improving the structuring, it's about confirming the structures, and it's about deploying them in the field so you can get more precise data so that mathematical models can work with them with greater confidence, because, you know, migration patterns of insects are pretty difficult to analyze, and we still fall short on technology that might predict those patterns, you know, where we can get an outburst of a certain, pest influx. Oleg, perhaps, Alexander, you, as an AI expert, why don't you go about solving the things that Alexander has mentioned? You need to understand how high a tree is. Is that all done manually? Well, that's a pretty difficult thing, but if you talk about the overall size, you can actually use a mobile phone app to understand the height. You can use very simple apps. How many logs do you have in a pile, for instance? You can calculate those logs automatically. That's no longer even customized. That's pretty typical. That's pretty much off-the-shelf technology. We need to understand the subject matter, because what AI runs up against is, you know, there are random correlations in observation. Very often you can see migration patterns, and they can be correlated with the GDP of a country, but this is a random correlation. Or, you know, there might be a correlation with a Nicolas Cage featuring movie, but the curve will need to be interpreted by some kind of a practitioner. You know, machine learning is getting democratized increasingly. There's all kinds of experts coming into the field, and domain experts are coming in for interpretation. All kinds of students are getting trained in artificial intelligence. You can run all kinds of hypotheses. You can verify all kinds of hypotheses in parallel. It's not just about one person understanding one thing on the nation. You can actually pull a whole community into the job. You can dissect one big problem into several hypotheses and start verifying them. And it's not a fact that the most believable hypothesis proves right, but these parallel research streams can identify very interesting things that you can invest more heavily into and bring in solid research institutions on board for broader and deeper research if you spot really good things. And that's perhaps relevant for all kinds of things. Availability of technology is such that you can bring a lot of people on the matter without having just one PhD peruse the data. Even graduates, even undergraduates can start doing good research with good added value. The demand appears to be very high. Why don't we try to predict some future here? Why don't we name a sphere where the role of AI and ML is going to be the most manifest in your area, 5-10 years out? monitoring and improvement of forestry monitoring. And if you look at the most recent publications on AI in forestry, that's the probing. That's what our head office is doing in Yuma. That's improvement of these methods, and we need this knowledge pool so that we understand the condition of the forests better, so we understand cadastre better, and we need to bring all of this into monitoring. Thank you. Maria, your take on the role of AI in preserving biodiversity? Both your opinion and your dream. Well, I would like very much to see artificial intelligence. It's a means to an end, but I would like this dialogue to happen. I would like experts in AI, skilled in applying the talent, the technology, coming and actually solving the jobs that we put up for them. And as for the forecasts, I think we will be able to collect much more data, and we will be able to spot all kinds of distribution patterns, sea temperatures. There is technology that can assess the temperature of the sea 10, 100, 200 meters deep. And we would like to accumulate more data, because the more data layers we use to analyze the proverbial cheetah or seal, the better will be the patterns, the better will be the conclusions on the factors that affect that animal. Okay, and perhaps your summation. And I would just like AI to benefit the people. And animals, yes. Because if we have this effect, a nerd comes in and says, you can do this simpler, you can do that simpler. People rejoice. And this feedback is great. That's just the positive feedback. That's the positive reinforcement for the engineers that write the code. And the question of creating the databases, the effective, voluntary and friendly collaboration between the engineers and the bioscientists. The future is great, it's huge, and the capabilities are limitless. Thank you very much. Again, I'm again convinced that we do not really give merit to the planet that we live in. We are spending the resources equivalent to 1.6 times the resources that the planet has. We are a multidimensional system, everything is connected, and this life cycle must be preserved at all costs. And right now we're going to be trying to look into the distant future and understand what weather we're going to have by 2100.